Hi, welcome to the Always Right podcast. I'm Carissa DeLay, and this is
Jamie Bandera.
Hello, Jamie. And we have a special guest with us today. We have Dr. Daughtrey from Arizona State University.
Hey,
She's not ever done a podcast. She's excited though.
Oh. What did you put in her coffee this morning is what I want to know.
She's got Diet Coke.
Okay, you two ladies have been giggling.
Yes, she drinks mushroom coffee.
That's what it was. Wait a minute. What? Let's hold it. What type of mushroom coffee?
I brought two, and TSA was very interested in all of my coffee. Carry on. I'll never do that again.
They wanted it for themselves.
My big ass thing of coffee creamer. Oh yeah. Like they're wiping that down with the little. Like, what is it? What is that white powder in there? Like I'm really gonna drink that, you know?
So snort it. Find out.
I swear.
Yes. All right. I love these podcasts.
We're going to talk about college papers today, and who better to give us insight than a college professor? I mean,
part-time comedian.
Yes. And full-time mushroom grower.
Yeah. God damn, I'll bet.
Oh, so funny. All right, so let's talk first about who you are. Tell us who you are. I know who you are. Who you are, but
you do?
Sort of.
Who am I? I am driven by my main value is curiosity. And so my entire life has just been driven by curiosity. And I do new things because I find myself being curious about the world and the way it works. I had 5 children, so I was a stay-at-home mom for years and years and years. I taught 1 year of 5th grade and said never again.
Oh.
My wife did too.
Yeah.
5th and 6th grade math. Yeah. I had to coach volleyball. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Like, oh, hell no. So then I went back to school and studied anthropology because I thought anthropology would save the world. And that was a very romantic kind of spiritualized view of anthropology. But ended up going into religious studies because I needed cheap therapy. And getting a master's degree in religious studies and then a PhD in religious studies. Then I went back to school because I saw the tremendous amount of religious trauma, not just in my own community, but just all over the world, trauma in the context of religion. And I've also been interested in the extent to which religion can help mitigate against trauma and that. Anyway, so I went back to school in 2016 and started a Master of Social Work. And now I'm a licensed counselor, licensed therapist in the state of Arizona. I have a very small practice. I have like 5 or 6 clients because it's not my day job. And I teach full-time I'm an instructor, full-time instructor at Arizona State University in the School of historical, philosophical shippers.
Yeah.
The School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies.
Yes.
And I'm teaching myself to grow mushrooms on the side because I'm an old lady and I don't want to be, like put out in the desert when the zombie apocalypse. It's like we were talking about on the way after she picked me up, this idea that the life of the mind is to be really rich. I mean, the life of an academic, you can know a lot of stuff, but that doesn't necessarily contribute to a community. And even being a therapist, that's practical and it's certainly helpful, but my husband can do literally everything. He can manage your money and build you a house and castrate your sheep.
It's a random thing.
But you grow mushrooms, so I think it kind of evens out.
I try to contribute to my compound community, my family.
I have a few friends that we play with that are trying to create a compound. Maybe you could be their mushroom growers. Like, listen, you need to add dough to your
list. Start our own cult.
That's what I keep telling them. This is a cult. They won't agree to the word. Yeah, I was wondering what was going on.
I said I'm excited about today's podcast because I'm sure a lot of people will learn from this. I had a lot of trouble writing papers for college. It drove me nuts. And I remember I did one, it wasn't a big one, maybe 30 pages on the history of the Hammond B3 organ. And as much as I loved the subject, it was like pulling teeth. Staying at the library, the big bibliographies, checking all my notes, all my stats. So I'm hoping I learned something today so I can pass along to my grandson, because I'm not going to write another college paper, but I'm sure a lot of our readers will.
Well, I know that I personally learned a lot about the do's and don'ts of writing a paper from this lady right here, because she had a very strict outline. You follow this and you're going to get a pretty good grade. If you don't follow this, you're not going to get a good grade. It's that simple. So, what are some of the things that you in the beginning tell students to do? What are the key factors that you're like, when you're writing a college paper, you must do this?
Well, so I feel like I need to distinguish between what I require and what other other professors might require, or even like a writing professor. I'm not a writing professor. I'm in the humanities, but I'm not, um, I'm not an English prof. So I get the sense that other professors, or that my students have been taught to write very general, vague, kind of fluff filler introductions. Like their first paragraph is, and identity is important. Everybody has one,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And like that may be true, and that's interesting, but I want them to cut to the chase, and I want them to be very specific about what they're writing about. Now, this is to make it easier for me and my teaching assistants to grade. So when I assign a paper, I like, what is the purpose of the paper? Well, for me, it's usually in an online class, because I teach exclusively online. The goal is to hold students accountable for reading or watching or whatever I've asked them to do. So I'm not in a classroom, so we can't have discussions. And then there's also the requirement of a particular class, Witchcraft and Heresy in Europe, fulfills a general studies literacy credit, a requirement at ASU. And so that criteria is that 50% of their grade has to come from critical analysis in English. And so I take kind of that pretty seriously. I wish they'd drop that, but but they haven't. And I don't know how much it would change how I teach the class if they did drop it. Since I am online, it's not like we can just show up and, have fun all the time. It's not something that anybody shows up to. They can watch my lectures. They can read the textbook. So ease of grading. What's my goal? I want them to read, and then for this particular class, critical analysis in English, and I have to certify that they can do that. Right, that's half of their grade at least has to come from that. So
if that's the case, I remember this, and it was a lot of fluff. So you were trying to fill up 30, 50 pages, or however big the what the term paper you're writing was. Do you still have a minimum page count or word count?
It's not even that. It's 500 word minimum.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
And they write one of these a week for 5 weeks. And it's based on a category. So everything I teach is based on categories. I learned that, a couple of decades ago that using a concept or a category as a lens through which to analyze something can really help students, like instead of just turning them loose and saying. So I usually, in most classes, will assign a category for each module. So we usually start with identity. So how does identity, like for this, for instance, heresy, a heretic, how do you get that identity? who gives it to you, who has the authority and the power to call you a heretic and make that stick, and to essentially ruin your identity, right? To spoil your identity. And so, what are the identity characteristics, if you will, like of a heretic? And so I want them to choose something from the textbook, that some example, one or more, and then go to town with it using the category of identity, using that idea of identity getting constructed.
I remember enjoying how you broke that up. And it's weird because she was the only professor that did this, where you break down, because sometimes when you're writing your 30 pages, where you said fluff, you probably are like, how do I fill this?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But the way she did it was with the identity, and then would you do perception?
Identity, then we move on to power and authority, or authority, power and or authority. Sometimes I throw in authenticity, like in how did they decide who was an authentic witch? Right. What were identity characteristics? They all build on each other, right? So who had the power and authority to assign the identities? How did they establish? Well, there was this witchcraft narrative. Witches were known to be thought to be in league with Satan. They were thought to eat babies. They were thought to fly.
Have bad breath.
All of those things, and then the next one is bodies. How do human bodies figure in? And so the idea about the categories is that you can use them to analyze literally anything in the world, anything you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I love is that students will come back to me and say, oh my gosh, I've started looking at, all my other classes. Mm-hmm. or even when I read the news, I think, oh, there's identity, oh, there's power and authority. Mm-hmm. Who has the authority, but maybe not the power, or vice versa.
Well, you know what's cool about this is, let's be honest, there's still a lot of professors that are going to have you write the fluff in the big 30-page term paper. And if you broke it down like this, if I had known this back in the day, it would have made it easier for me to write, instead of being like, oh, I've only got 7 pages. How am I going to come up with 23 more pages? Mm-hmm. And adding it in like that. In this day and age too, with TikTok and the way that I write fiction books, they're very tight, concise. They're very short, so you can read in like 3 hours. Things are changing. Hopefully other professors will get into this model and shortening them, because it's about the facts and getting to the points.
Yeah, who needs where, why, when? That's what's relevant, and I probably should just kind of quit reflecting on it and just say that so they have to, in the very first sentence, use the category word identity, identifies, identified, identities, some permutation of the assigned category in the first sentence. In the first 3 sentences, they have to situate themselves in place and time, in France, in the Middle Ages, in 1537 or whatever, and that way they're laying out in that very first paragraph what it is that they're going to be writing about, instead of just like identity. Everybody's got one. It's like how you're seen by the world, and I just read one like that, and this particular student was asking me, I don't understand why I lost credit. I was told that I didn't locate myself in time and place in the first 3 sentences, and I did. And I went back, and the whole first paragraph was nothing but this general fluff, interesting and true reflection on identity in general, but I explicitly said don't do that, and there was no mention in the first 3 sentences of either heresy or heretics, or the Middle Ages or Europe, anywhere in Europe. And so it's just like, just follow the instructions, and you're gonna do fine.
Yes, and I'm telling you, I printed off Dr. Daughtrey's list of things. It's in the very beginning of her classroom. When you're opening up the classroom, it has this laid out segment of what you're supposed to be doing. Print it out every time. You make sure you follow.
Just check the list.
Check the list.
Identity or in the
But
first
here's the
sentence.
thing.
Check.
After taking and learning how to write and you did this in the other class though too, because I took Witchcraft and Heresy from you, but I also took, I think, was it
Women and Religion.
No,
No.
Was it? Did you teach Religion
205?
205? Yes, I took that class.
Life, Sex, and Death.
Yes. So
that's a class.
So I took that class, and you have the same kind of parameters to follow. And it taught me, even for my future class when I was doing my capstone, when I was doing like those where I had to write that really long paper, it kept me like on point. It kept me like, okay, get to the point, don't add the fluff, and then you'll realize how much you have to put in there. It's not, I mean, and I don't think I ever wrote a paper that was only 500 words. I always wrote at least 1,000.
Well, I mean, you can write as much as you want. You just have to at least write 500 words. And I warn them, you have to be really, really good to get this done in 500 words. You're going to write more probably.
Yeah, you need to write. You'll realize when you do it that way, you have to write more. But when you're trying to put fluff, you lose fluff. But when you're actually, but you also have to do the assignment. You have to read the material. You have to watch the videos. You have to listen to the lectures. The way she makes you do it almost is like a checks and balances that you did the work, because you can't just skim stuff. You have to be able to write the stuff to know what's going on, because as it continues and you're going from identity to power, you had to know who's identified in the beginning to understand who has the power later. So if you're not following the work.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to explain this to a student day before yesterday who, was really struggling with, I said, just ignore chapter 2. If you've read the introduction in chapter 1, that's all like just pick something from chapter 1 or the introduction to write on, just ignore chapter 2. But then I realized when we were talking about what they're doing this week.
Yeah. She probably should pay attention.
I said, oh my goodness, you might want to go back and read this section to understand the gender piece.
Right.
Because,
just hearing this, my mind's always on fire thinking things. Number one, I feel like we need a Dr. Daughtrey's checklist to go with this podcast to help people. But number two, you ought to write a book on this. We actually know a publisher, by the way.
But we know a publisher and a couple authors.
because I'm very interested, because this could help not just writing college papers, but structurally with how-to books, nonfiction books. This would be an excellent guide because people miss those points.
The other assignment that so I'm not an historian, right? I'm not trained as a historian. And so, but I love history. And, but why does it matter? It's because, the concerns about, for instance, witchcraft and heresy haven't gone anywhere, right? We can see it in the news. We can see it, in our political discourse and everywhere, right? So I have them do a discussion where they have to do the same thing. They just find some sort of resource that represents current concerns about whatever we're studying, whether it's not right now, also teaching women and religion, women, gender, and religion. And so, like find a resource having to do with women, gender, and religion, and analyze it, discuss it through the lens of the assigned category. And so it's a similar kind of writing. It's a lot less formal maybe, but, and the other thing in religious studies, we have to avoid personal opinions. Mm-hmm. That's the other writing.
This is something that I learned from you. Writing objectively, to be able to write objectively and not, because I'm an opinionated person. So for me to not give my opinion.
No, not you.
Well, so to teach students the difference between academic analysis and personal opinion, do they get to have personal opinions and express them? I mean, I have personal opinions about the religious ideas and, things that I've written about, like in my dissertation and presentations and stuff like that. And so there's a way of using humanistic evidence, to show what's at stake for people. So this is the biggest thing that I try to train my students is what's at stake for people is what we care about, not what your opinions are about them. So like, you can think that they're right or wrong. I do. I do that too. I have those personal opinions. They're wrong when they say that. They're wrong when they do that. That's different from saying, here is what at stake for people when they do those things, when they set those policies in a religious group that harms people or that protect people. Like, what are they trying to do? Well, usually salvation is what's at stake in the Christian context, right? Or in the Judeo-Christian context. It's some form of salvation. And so understanding why they do the things that they do, they're not just hypocrites. I mean, I'm sure there are some individual hypocrites. But like in the witchcraft and heresy context, when you're talking about the Roman Catholic Church, who was the winner, by the way, of the battle over what was going to, be Christianity for a long time, there was a lot at stake for maintaining that institution and for maintaining there. And it wasn't just that they were all hypocrites, and wanted to live the life of luxury. Well, yeah, some of them did. But there was something at stake for them that had them set the policies they did, that had them hunt witches the way they did. I mean, there's this whole history of, dualism, for instance, in the Western tradition, and that has had people be reading the Bible, for instance, and looking to find how to replicate the life of Jesus. How to live the apostolic model. And then get designated as heretic because.
So when you're with your textbooks, do you get to select your textbooks?
I do.
And do they have to be approved through ASU?
No.
Really? Okay.
It's hard.
I didn't know how they did. Like, did they have to have a certain parameter that when you use them, like what they have to fall into a certain category?
Not in shippers, not in my school. Okay. Now it's entirely possible that I know it's true that another, like in English, they have to assign a particular textbooks, right?
Right, but I didn't know if they had to fall with it, because I know with other religious classes I've taken at ASU and anthropology classes, some of them, like one of them was the evolutionary medicine, and the book itself was very non-evolutionists. So when you're reading it, you're like, because I'm not an evolutionist, this book doesn't like me. So I didn't know if there's a guideline when professors pick books, what they're allowed to pick.
Oh, I've never been told what to do, and I've never been given a guideline. I've always just, like the only time I ever asked advice was when I first started teaching witchcraft and heresy, because I'm like, I'm not an historian, I'm not an European, I'm an Americanist. But I know that I can teach this class.
Right.
And I went to the person who designed the class, and I said, I'm looking at this book by Roper, Witch Craze, which,
such a good book. Oh my gosh. That is a very good book, by the way. That's a very good book.
And his response was, I find that because she focuses on fertility, that most men don't get it. And I'm like, what do men not get about fertility?
I think I have it on my bookshelf back there, actually.
It kind of makes me wonder,
fertility very well.
You must have had some crazy citations, because it were maybe like, I'd be going to my New Age bookstore and grabbing all kinds of stuff. You'd be like, nope, that's not the witchcraft book that we need.
You can only use that is one thing. You only use the books that are assigned.
Academic press.
Yeah, you have to use stuff. Okay. Yeah, you can't use presses. Yeah, there are certain things you can use.
I mean, I could assign a novel. I could assign I could assign, I could assign anything I wanted. I would just have to be clear. Professors are supposed to explain why they've made their students buy this book.
Okay.
And that's actually another issue that is faced by professors all over, is the cost of textbooks and the fact that students are just really tapped out. They've got student loans, they've got XYZ, whatever they've got, and they're working 2 or 3 jobs to make, and we talked about this, the demographics of online students are such that they are older students, that they're managing 1 job or more, they're raising children, they're taking care of aging parents, or, they have special needs, they've got disabilities, or what we would call disabilities, they're neurodiverse, or they're, whatever they've got, they're have, like me, hearing problems and sight problems, and they're navigating all of this stuff. and they don't have money to spend, $150 on one textbook. They just don't. And so what I usually try to do is find textbooks that are available free through ASU libraries in ebook format. And if students don't like that, or they can't utilize that, then they're free to buy buy the print copy. But textbook, especially in classes like women, gender, and religion, that is so tough. It is really hard, which is one reason actually ASU hired me to develop that course. And this is one reason I don't like teaching it. It's because it's hard to find an up-to-date textbook that is available, that's accessible.
What I have found recently, and I don't know if this is just a new thing with some of the classes I've been taking, is a lot of professors have been saying, don't buy a textbook. We're going to provide all of it for you. So
can I hire you to do that for me?
Yes, that would be nice.
I know. I should be doing that. I should have done that for years.
Yeah, that's what they've been adding.
I want the work to be done for me.
The textbook is in there, so you can see it's all like, I don't know how they do it, but it's
pieces, parts.
Yes. Or they'll just, the last class I took, now granted, the reading was insane. There was so much reading per week, but it was all available. Like, she just had the links to everything on there, and we just read all that, and then you tested over that. But yeah, there was the past couple classes I've taken, there hasn't been a textbook.
Yeah, I should do that. I'm getting to the end of my career, but
although most students, this is a completely different topic on the podcast, but if you are a student, you're listening, you can take up, I think, $4,600 a year on your taxes off of your school books.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah, I learned that last year.
Yeah.
Oh no, we did it for my wife when she was getting her master's.
Yes,
all through college.
Master's degrees.
Yeah, well, it's been a while.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. Time flies.
Yeah, when you're
it's
having
crazy.
fun.
Yeah.
So, squirrel, that's how I am, ADHD. Back, and I said citations. I'm curious, what citation style do you use in your class?
Well,
what do you prefer?
Religious studies is, in the humanities, and it's multidisciplinary, right? You've got anthropologists who teach religious studies. You've got, so historians, obviously. But religious studies, unless something's changed, it's not like I go around and look at the stuff. But we used to say religious studies uses Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone back and forth. I don't really care. Like when I get a TA who will take off a bunch of credit when somebody misses a comma, I'm just like, stop doing that. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want students to practice. I really like the author date style because of the in-text citation is just so.
Mm-hmm.
But as a social worker, what do we use? APA, I think. As social worker, when I was in that program, I had to use APA. Now I'm a student in a Celtic Studies master's degree program at the University of Wales online, and they use something called, I don't even know what it is, something close to Harvard. Starts with an M. I've never heard of it.
Oh.
Marvard. That's
I don't
not
want
it.
to do this.
That's not it. James is just making stuff up.
But I like Chicago. I took 2 semesters of graduate level editing class using Chicago.
It's so interesting. At ASU, I've done 2 classes that were Chicago. Yours and
everything else.
Another professor. It was a guy. I don't remember what the class was. I think it was my class that was pre-capstone. The guy that I take like the pre-class before that, like 300 level or whatever, was teaching you how to write that paper. Other than that, they've all been APA, and one of them was the MLA. Yeah, everything else has been APA.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you think a college would get together and use the same style, because that could confuse a student, and they could get marked off for that.
Yeah, but you're going to kind of figure them out. And honestly, anymore, that's another thing. If you're not sure how to write your citation, literally there's a citation generator. So you can you could, for the most part, go to an online library, say, okay, I need APA, copy it to your thing, and then post it on there. That's how I do it. You just got to make sure which ones have a hanging tag and which ones don't.
Yeah, and the fact that I'm online and like I'm just like ignore Chicago's hanging because you're not going to be able to get that in the discussion post, you know.
Yeah.
But I just want students to practice. I just mainly care that, I mean, plagiarism is a huge thing because people don't get intellectual property. You know, like my youngest daughter is an intellectual property attorney she's a partner in a law firm, big law firm. I mean, she does patents, but still, you know, like I also took a bunch of graduate classes on intellectual property, and so
I don't know how anybody could get by with it nowadays. And here's the crazy thing with AI. I was playing around with AI for an article just for my school and telling one of my partners about it. He says, you got to watch that because that's exactly what will happen. You know, with AI, it's going to pull, and that could be considered plagiarism. I said, I never thought about that. You know, I wouldn't personally do it to write an actual book or anything, but it's got to be running rampant now, and you're going to get caught.
Yeah, well, ASU has actually embraced it. I missed yesterday because I was on the plane or getting on the plane to come here. I missed a workshop that I had registered for through ASU, an Eventbrite thing on using AI as your teaching assistant.
Oh, really?
Like, hey, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
They're embracing AI, you know, and that's another reason for, I think, that I have argued for doing away with that literacy, or at least reconsidering what it means to be literate in English. You know, demonstrate literacy in English.
Yeah, it's always changing. I have no problem with AI. I mean, I've tested it out, and it's more of an inspirational tool for me.
I can't write fiction yet because I was like, I wonder. So I didn't do it as to like create my story, but someone had asked me, maybe it was you that asked me, Jamie, about what my thoughts were on AI. So I experimented with it with Grammarly. And so I wanted it to write a mysterious paragraph, and it couldn't do it. It's like, no, I don't. It didn't know how to do that. It didn't know how to imagine a mysterious place or to create a dark energy. It was all like, it literally said, you're not being positive. It was trying to keep me on this positive loop. And I'm like, I don't want to be positive. I want to write a fiction novel about a serial killer.
I feel like if you gave it parameters, like I want to write a story about somebody who looks like Chucky, but it's a green Martian or whatever, you gave them all these parameters, it could spit something out, and it's kind of like you word vomit. Just using text to speech, you would go back through it and be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. No, I'm not going to write it like that. But it inspired me, and then you'd still have to do a lot of editing, I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about plagiarism is it's not like I think I don't want it to be a shameful thing. You know, I want people to learn the difference. Like I realized this didn't happen that long ago that I finally realized that people didn't know the difference. My students didn't know the difference between paraphrasing and quoting. And and I had a very, very dear friend who for well over a decade taught English lit, or, you know, creative writing at ASU, or writing at ASU, classes at ASU. And I know that there's no way that she or any other professor at ASU can prepare every student to know how to write, or to know how, you know, what it means to paraphrase. You know, like some students are going to get it, some are not. And some are not going to care until it matters to them. And I just want students, you know, to be thoughtful about, I want them to be mindful.
Do you happen to remember like the worst paper a student ever turned in?
We were talking about this. No, I mean, the worst for me, because as I was explaining to Carissa, the worst papers for me are that cause me to be afraid. And that is because of the specific nature of religious studies in a public university. The Supreme Court, the way it's interpreted, what it means to study religion in a public space, means that I can teach about religion, I cannot preach religion, and I can't let my students do that either. That's why avoiding personal opinions, like there's a way to say, like, don't you want my opinion? Yes, I do. Your academic, backed up by humanistic evidence, but I don't want you to say they're wrong in doing that. Because that's a personal opinion. I may agree with you. I think it's wrong that they burned all those witches, or
Yeah.
hung them or whatever, that they tortured all those people. Yeah, that was horrible. I agree. That tells us nothing about what's at stake, right?
Yeah. So
For them to have them do that.
So let me ask you this then. So with your parameters that you set with your pages, how often in the beginning of your class do you have to reiterate that to students? This is why your scores are so low.
Yeah. Usually it's that first assignment, the first category analysis. Yeah.
People just don't get it.
But most of them get it, but someone will just say they shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, that's why in the syllabus there's a list of words not to use. Shouldn't is one of them. Should is one of them.
Yes.
Hypocritical. So I have this list of words don't say those things. Don't call them crazy. Don't, that's a personal opinion. I might agree with you, but that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss, why did they do that crazy stuff? That stuff that we think is crazy.
Whenever I was writing and I put it into a Word doc, I would go through Dr. Daughtrey's list. I knew I didn't use the word crazy, but some of the other words that I may have used in natural speaking, I put them in the search engine, made sure I didn't use those words in the sentences before I turned this paper in, because those were her guidelines.
Do that.
But it reformulated how I looked at future work and how I looked at future statements objectively.
So
that's a really good tip.
Precision. Yeah. To their language, their use of language.
What were you going to say, Jamie?
No, I was just going to say that was a really good tip for those of you listening. If you're writing a term paper and your professor's like, you should not use the word should, definitely do a keyword search in your paper before you turn this in.
I'm sorry.
Or else you could lose some points. So.
Yeah, and I do think that's something you should think about, is writing a book about the do's and don'ts.
Absolutely. Writing
a paper. Because even though your papers are only a Memo 500, over the course of a 7.5-week course, she's probably got 6 to 7 papers in there. So you're getting more than that overall if you put them together. Yeah. And you're doing a paper a week.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier, because if she's talking about identity and this and that, if you look at the course of a larger paper, that would possibly all be in there. That's a guidelines.
I've done that in previous semesters. Take all of these analyses that you've done of these categories and then make a paper out of it. Mm-hmm. Give me an introduction that introduces what is, what's common about, all of these things that you noticed, mm-hmm. and slap a conclusion on it. Part of my problem is that I don't want my TAs to have to grade final paper.
Yeah, but that's a lot.
Yeah, but the worst paper to me is one that is a proselytizing paper that either contains a lot of personal opinions about religion. This is wrong, this is bad, they shouldn't do this, because that's hard to. It's just scary as a professor to get that kind of paper.
I would have to say that even though I haven't spoke with most of my professors about the same question, every professor that I've had through anthropology and religion have that same, please do not give your opinions, please. And they always reiterate, when you write this, it has to be objective, not an opinion. So not outside of Dr. Daughtrey's class, I also had other professors who would restate that whole thing. Don't give us your opinion. So they probably don't want that opinion, because that's not what it's about. Religious studies is the study of all religions objectively. Anthropology is looking at the human culture objectively, not as a belief system. It's just looking at from like the facts, not from personal opinions.
Correct. So if you were Jewish, you can't. I understand you have your beliefs and your opinions, but you can't downplay a Christian or a Muslim when you're writing these papers or
another
studying.
Brand of Jew, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like those, you can't say, my brand of Judaism is the true one, the right one. But usually I try to just be very forgiving. Like, really, if you will follow these, I have a lot of A+ in my class. I want them. My background is in education. My first degree a million years ago in 1978 was, education. So I was trained as an educator. And I want everyone to succeed. This is it's not law school. It's not a competition. There aren't only a finite number of A's that go out. I want everybody to get an A. And if you just follow the instructions, I'm giving you a roadmap for an A. If you can write your way out of a paper bag, if you can just follow these instructions.
I said it at the beginning, Chris has said it, and I gotta reinforce it. You definitely need to write a book because maybe I am interested in the subject, but if I weren't interested in witchcraft and what had happened, and I'd taken your class, I feel like I could learn how to become a better writer from following these rules.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's students come back and tell me.
Yes.
Okay. See,
okay.
You gotta write a book.
Easily graded.
Next project.
Yep.
We're getting her to write a book.
Yeah, we're gonna start getting her bio and her picture up on Vendera Publishing, and bam.
Yeah. Coming soon.
Can I
Yes, you're getting tag teamed.
Oh yeah, so the people who don't know, so this okay, we should have said this in the beginning. Yep, she's wearing her Destiny 2 shirt. I'm wearing my Control Freak shirt.
Freak.
So one of the things I knew I was gonna love this woman was one.
Put it in my bio.
Well, she had blue hair in her picture. She had blue hair in her picture. It's not as blue, but it's got the tint of blue, like a bluish purple.
I just had it colored. Why is it not blue?
No, it's bluish purple. It's bluish purple, but it was more blue in your picture that you had.
Yeah,
yes,
it was
on her other picture. So it does have blue, but the one on her thing for her professor bio was blue. I'm like, oh, after my own heart.
Yep.
Then she's like, don't email me, text me. I'm like, yes, because I hate to email.
I give students my email. I mean my
yes.
Number.
Yes.
I want to be accessible.
Yes. So cell phone number. I'm like, yes. And then she's like, oh, and I play video. She didn't specify. She just said she played video games. I'm like, who is this woman? I have to know. So before class had even started, I just said, okay, I'm just going to text her. I'm like, hi, Professor Daughtrey. I'm a student. This has nothing to do with the class, but what video game do you play? Because I play video games. She plays the same video game with me on the same type of console. And I'm like, oh.
So now we play all the time. I guess the last class you took with me, I was like, we didn't play while you were my student, but when did we?
Well,
So they got that rule at the school. Students are not allowed to play video games with professors.
Well, so I
have some boundaries, right?
I took her first class. And then we got to playing video games because we hooked up online or whatever. Then I had an opportunity to take her witchcraft and heresy class because I needed it as like my extra for my degree. And I was like, hey, I said, is it improper if I take this class with you? And she's like, no, we just didn't play during that time. So like I had like a span of like 7 weeks where we really didn't play together. So
agony.
See each other online. Sorry, can't play with you.
I'm still stuck on you saying witchcraft.
Listen, my tongue gets in my way.
I know we're going over, but I love this podcast. I gotta ask, do you do any writing? I mean, you're into this. Do you write anything for leisure or poems, nonfiction, fiction?
No, like my dissertation ruined me. I have to write for this Celtic Studies program that I'm in, and that's been agony because I don't get the the UK system. Their system is like Greek to me. But
I hit with my foot. I crossed my hands to try to not talk with him because I'm always moving. I'm trying so hard today. So
I did start a book with a friend about
Carissa on writing.
No.
Was it okay? I'm planting the seed.
I started a book with a friend on what was it? Mental health for people in various contemporary pagan communities. But it didn't go very far. we kind of have dropped that. I do like writing. I used to write a lot for I used to go to conferences and stuff, and I used to like to write papers on. Of course, that some of that's academic, some of it is personal, But I would like to write a book. This is not the first time this has come up in the last week.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, the first one is I think is the toughest. It was for me, but once you do, I don't even think it'll be tough for you, depending on what you're writing. Because if you decided to write a book on how to do these papers, that would go just like teaching a class. It would float, but then you would get that bug, and then you'd be writing this or that. You may get into fiction and the nonfiction. That's what happened with Carissa.
Well, and the thing is, it'd be very easy for her to start with just taking the outline that you give students. Here's what you do. You literally put those into a thing, and then you just expound on them. Why are we doing it this way?
Yeah.
Explain, and then say, this is what brought me to having you do this.
Lecture video on
that.
No, listen, I'm like a product developing freak, and I'm already thinking this book doesn't even have to be that big. It could be out. You could do a lecture video. Bam, bam, you have 2 products.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're traveling, and then you're teaching doing these lectures here and there.
Yeah. That is interesting because as a mental health professional as well, this, I really want to integrate the mental health aspects into, whatever I write.
Well, I mean,
and presenting, it's like, why do people go into social work or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's usually because they want to make a difference. They want to help people, but they're doing that either in a group setting with 10 or 12 people, or they're doing it in individual therapy. And you can reach a lot more people if you A, write a book, or B, do conferences or presentations to larger groups.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing the difference you can make in a big group.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Oh no, absolutely. I've done this all over the world with voice. My first book came out in 2004, and I did got a few TV shows out of it, and it expanded from them. And I was doing workshops in Europe, Middle East, Australia, and it's just it's an intimate setting, even if there's hundreds of people there.
Yeah,
it's just something magical about it,
Because
spreading the word.
About what's in people's hearts, you're.
Yeah, if someone's going to your conference, there's something in them that spark. They want to know a little more, even if it's just this much. There's something they wanted to know that.
What's at stake for them?
Right. What? Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Or as we like to say, what's in it for me?
Yeah. What's in it?
Yeah.
Carissa,
I am so excited we got to do this.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, this is fun. I want to do more of this.
We plan on going over on this one. We plan on going a little bit longer on this one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I dig it because this is very, very important. And for those of you watching, Dr. Daughtrey's book will be out soon. We'll let you know when. That way, I know you're wanting these notes, but we might not give them to you. You might just have to wait for the book. So.
Yeah, just wait for the book. Or get it from one of our classes. It'd probably be cheaper to buy the book, though.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
#1 research university in the.
That's why I picked ASU though, because it was the top for the studies.
It's such a privilege.
And the only reason I took classes was because of my nonfiction book.
Yes.
And so when I write future stuff, classes, especially the one that I've taken from Dr. Daughtrey and how to look at things prospectively in writing, is going to help me in the future as well. So.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast today.
An honor and a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so
I'm assuming
lovely to meet you.
Yeah.
Yes, and I get to spend the whole week with her, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it. Are you going to set up 2 PlayStations side by side and play and scream at each other, or are you going to go to the beach?
First of all,
I did travel with my Xbox. I have a dedicated
Xbox. I don't know. I should have said Atari. I got an Atari. I got an Atari VCS here somewhere.
No, we play on Xbox. She brought hers with her, so she's trying to get that figured out. So yeah, we will be playing this evening, of course. So, but then we'll be doing stuff today. We got all kinds of things planned. I'm going to my pedicure. Yes, it is reset day.
Hey,
her nails done.
Is she getting a tattoo?
Several.
Oh wow!
Jealous.
I'm so jealous. I am.
I'm gonna go home all tatted.
She's done I don't know how many you've done on me now, Carissa.
My favorite
One,
one's
two.
the branding one.
Yeah, the Venderans, you can't see it because it's all the way up here. You have to show pictures where I'm crying. You have to show the videos.
He's a baby. Oh, Scott took it like a tramp, or
Yes. I want to tell him tonight. I said, man, you take it like a tramp.
although that's kind of fitting as well.
What was the other word you said?
I don't know what time
Something
it
clipped
was.
you. Oh my gosh. Can you catch like a mushroom tea buzz over the internet? Because I feel like I'm getting affected here.
Right? Okay.
I know how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, ladies.
So you can follow us on our socials, Always Right Podcast. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, Always Right, as well. Be sure to listen to our previous episodes as well as this one.
Therapy Witch.
Oh, yeah. That's what she is on it. Yes, she's Therapy Witch on her Xbox. Yeah, you can follow. You can be friends with us on Xbox. Yeah. Oh, and Twitch. Yeah, she's on Twitch. Discord. Yes.
Okay, if you two get overrun with a lot of 12-year-old women haters playing video games.
I take care of those people in Crucible. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you have. We've discussed that.
Yes. All right. So
no child is safe.
Until next time, we want to make sure that you continue listening. I am Carissa DeLay, author from Vendera Publishing.
And I am Jamie Vendera.
And thank you so much, Dr. Daughtrey, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Daughtrey.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, and always right.